Isaac Sarason is a skilled hacker formerly employed by British Telecom-Sprint. With his health failing, Isaac did the only thing he could think of. He ran. He found a haven in a working-class district of the city known as Little Russia. There Isaac took on a new name, Ishmael. Within hours of his arrival, he was embroiled in the affairs of a brutal member of Lomidze organized crime family known as Leo. Convinced by a longtime friend, Frankie, to flee from his commitments to the Lomidze family, Isaac found himself hunted by the ruthless Leo. On a rooftop, far from witnesses, Leo murdered Frankie. Only through the use of his skills as a hacker was Isaac able to drive Leo off. Now wounded, alone, and far from help, Isaac depends on the kindness of strangers. What do you do when the only way to save those you love is through the use of proxies? Colbyjack.net is proud to present Firmware Proxy by Colbytrax. The city is an organism made of over 250 million people. Stretching in, around, over, and under the city is enough telecommunications conduits to stretch from Earth to someplace too far away to imagine. It was across this network I walked. I routed my signal out through the Lomidze family network. There were two networks I could access from my cell in what I now knew to be a fish farm. The first was the aforementioned Lomidze network, the primary data carrier for the Ukrainian mafia family. The second was the Aberdeen network. I avoided the Aberdeen network out of courtesy to my hosts. Nestled within the depths of the Amazov catfish farm, I used the Lomidze network to interface with a ZYT phone switch. From there, I routed myself across town to a Pacific Bell long-distance trunk line. I routed myself across the country to another Pacific Bell switch in San Francisco. From there, I hit another ZYT switch in the city, jumped into the wireless network at the Red Square, and then back out through a BTS switch. At every step of the way, up to the Red Square, I used a variety of tricks to prevent myself from being discovered. After the Red Square, I stopped being careful. I wanted what I did to be traceable to the Red Square. It took me most of a day to get my network arranged. I rested for a few hours. When I awoke, I started working on David. Once I discovered David was Leo's nephew, I remembered his fancy phone and seeing him on it as he stood in the cold morning light in the lot before Epstein's diner. He had spent a lot of time on the phone, if I remembered right. Way too early in the morning. Who did he call? Was he the one who notified BTS about where I could be found? I slapped myself when I realized how easily the BTS Ronin found me at the oyster bed. It had to be him. But why would David call BTS? If he told BTS where to find me, why did they check the apartment over Georgie's first? Surely he told them I moved to the place over Ivanova's. There was only one way to know for sure. I had to call BTS security. I activated an audio recorder. I might need to have proof or the voice of a target. One never knew to what use even the most benign data might be put. I called the BTS public inbound line. "Thank you for choosing British Telecom-Sprint," the AI switchboard answered. "How may I help you today?" "I need to talk to accounts receivable," I answered. "In order to better route your call, could you please tell me the nature of your business?" The voice held all the chipperness human operators lost in the first week. "This is in regard to informant payments made regarding Isaac Sarason," I answered, using my real name for the first time in weeks. "I am transferring you to the associate responsible for this account. Thank you for choosing British Telecom-Sprint for all your telecommunications needs." I was transferred. The line rang 3 times. "Special accounts, David Levine speaking." "David Levine? I think I have the wrong extension," I said, with a hint of exasperation in my voice. "This isn't 3987? "No, this is 8945, Levine said. "I can transfer you to 3987 if you want." "That would be awesome, David. Something must be wrong with the AI tonight." "It happens." David transferred me. The line rang twice.
Employee records, Elizabeth Jansen speaking. How can I help you?
This is not my night, I said. Must be something wrong with the receptionist.
What?
Elizabeth asked in a soft tone. I asked the receptionist to put me through to Sarar, and it dumped me here. I added a hint of tiredness to my voice. I really don't want to go through that receptionist again. Could you transfer me to the Sarar?
I'm not familiar with that department,
Elizabeth said. Good, I thought.
They are listed under Security, subheading Employee Retention and Recovery, I said. Oh, here it is. What does Sarar do?
Elizabeth asked. Employees always find it interesting when they discover a department they never knew existed. They're the guys who guarantee the safety and loyalty of employees above pay grade 37. Make sure they don't go running off to the competition.
Oh,
she said. I heard amazement in her voice. Most employees below 37 don't even know such a service exists.
Are you on a case?
Not exactly, I said. It's just that I've just spotted someone I heard Sarar was looking for, hoping to get a little of the reward money. I laid it on heavy.
I don't suppose you could tell me who it is?
She asked sheepishly. I could, but then I'd have to kill you, I teased.
Really?
No, I answered. Could you do me a favor and give me the extension so I can bypass a receptionist? You know, in case the transfer doesn't go through? It would be just my luck tonight.
Not a problem. It's 9678. I'll transfer you right away. I hope you get your reward.
Me too, I said. A moment later, the transfer went through.
Employee Retention and Recovery, how may I direct your call?
A male voice came across the line, soft, without a hint of malice.
It was very strange for the department, which prides itself on the capabilities of its operatives, to have such a soft man on the phone. Did they employ their own experts in social engineering? Did they have their own crew of anti-hackers who monitored their incoming calls and investigated the strange ones?
Of course they did. I would if I were them. I hung up. I replayed the voice of the Sarar operative. I listened closely. I heard something. No, it was the lack of something. I found my earlier conversations. In each of them, I could hear office sounds. I listened again to the voice of Sarar. The sound was too clean, too perfect. It was an AI. This was going to be tougher than I expected. Maybe David wasn't important. Maybe he wasn't the one who leaked my location to BTS. I was anxious. I got up and paced around my cell and thought back to Frankie's death. Leo on the roof above us, his weapon glinting in the morning light like the hand of God. I saw Frankie evaporate under a hail of flechettes. I held his severed hand in mine. There was no way that bastard was going to get away with murder. David had to be involved. How else would Leo know to slip into Ivanova's instead of coming to the aid of his men? That clinched it. David had called BTS. In order to avoid suspicion, David had them hit the apartment over Georgie's Market. Then they rolled down to Ivanova's. There was no other way for them to know about the apartment over Ivanova's. I hadn't secured it, and my name was in no way attached to it. That sealed it. David made the call, but Leo asked him to. David had no love for me, even at the engagement party. I don't think Leo liked the attention Sergio paid to me. I tried to get inside Leo's head. He recruited me. Entrapped was more accurate. He expected to receive accolades from Sergio over his wonderful find. Sergio hadn't rewarded him as he wanted. Now that I think of it, there might be a good chance that Sergio had never approved of Leo's actions in regards to me and Nona. I think he was embarrassed. That would explain the extravagance of the engagement dinner as well as the bachelor party. He was buying me off, trying to show he wasn't as crude as Leo. What was it Frankie said? Little Russia was gentrifying. In another generation, it would be another quaint neighborhood with an interesting backstory. It would be home to the bourgeoisie, people who would not accept a whorehouse next to their newly remodeled Georgian terrace. The Lomidze family would change, perish, or move on to territory more to their liking.
Leo and David would perish. They had no understanding of change. They wanted a timeless world of vice and terror, a world at odds with the newly emerging petty bourgeoisie of Little Russia, much less the grinding pressure of the city's established bourgeoisie who would follow close behind. Dmitri, I like to think, would move on and find himself a new place to make his way. Sergio, on the other hand, would stay. He owned too much real property. Something about him was different. He carried the appearance he wanted something more from life than to be just another hood pursued to the end of his days. He carried himself the way I pictured Joe Kennedy did, as he turned a supposedly illegal fortune and smuggled booze into a legitimate fortune in the final decade of the World War. Sergio saw a window opening where he could become a real man of power in the city, not just a brigand ruling over a changing neighborhood. I continued to pace my room. My imagination delved into the darkness surrounding Little Russia. If Sergio was such a smart cookie, ready for change, prepared for it in fact, why was Leo able to hurt Nona? Why was Nona now being held in the nesting doll? Why did he allow this? If Leo knew BTS was coming in force, he would have planned for it. I'm sure he had David push the incident. BTS didn't start fights, but they were known for finishing them. If I were to begin a power struggle in Little Russia, I would start by having outsiders crush my opponent's foot soldiers. I'd keep my men out of the fighting, all the while feeding my target's men to the meat grinder. I thought back to my view of the fighting before Ivanova's. David had severely wounded at least 4 men beside the limo. Now that I thought about it was probably 5 men. Zahar and Ceci were down, blood pooled around them. Dmitri and Andrei had fought back to back. David was in the perfect position to flee. All he had to do was run across the street, across Sheridan, and into one of the buildings across the way. Thanks to my messing with the neighborhood video archives, there was no way for me to know what David had done after finishing off his final victim. I held too many threads in my hand. There was just too much to do, too many paths of potential actions to unfold. I stopped maniacally pacing. Why was I stopped? Why was I waiting? I knew where to start. All I had to do was call the Sarason number and ask a few questions. Firmware, Proxy, is the second book in the Firmware pentology. That's 5 books, if you must know. It begins moments after Firmware Hijacked ends. So if you haven't heard or read Firmware Hijacked, this would be a good time to head on over to Colbyjack.net and either download the podcast on the audio side, read the episodes on the visual side, or download the Colbyjack Sunday Reader issues 1 through 20 in your choice of either EPUB or Mobi. Firmware Hijacked and Proxy are both available in ebook versions from our store at shop.colbyjack.net, amazon.com, and Barnes & Noble. Just search for Colbytrax. That's Colbytrax. I'm the only one. A complete audiobook version of both Firmware Hijacked and Proxy is available for download through our shop as well. If you don't need any stuff, but would like to support our work, drop on by Colbyjack.net and hit the pretty little donate button conveniently located on the right-hand side of the blog roll. If you're on a smaller screen, the button will be found at the bottom of the page. Firmware Proxy is released under a Creative Commons, non-commercial, attribution, share-alike 3.0 license. Do what you want with it, just don't sell it and always tell people where it came from. If you received this from a friend and want more information about Colbyjack.net and our split personality website, just drop on over to Colbyjack.net and select either the audio or visual side. The audio side carries our podcast, while the visual side carries our writings. Whichever side catches your fancy is fine with us. We're of 2 minds about the whole thing anyway. If you want to get social with me, I do mostly Twitter. So if you do the tweets and want to follow me, I'm Colbytrax. Spelled the same as above, Colbytrax. We could sing that all night long. Thank you once again and have a wonderful week.